The Celtics, though, did have an epic collapse last night versus the Nets, just like Brian's epic collapse during Maker Minutes. No, I'm kidding. We will dig into that in a moment. First, let's check out this play at the end of regulation, because you got to see it to understand what Marcus Smart was so upset about. He was called for the foul on Karis LeVert with 0.2 seconds left. LeVert sends the game to overtime at the foul line. Smart went on to foul out in overtime. He had some aggressive language for the officials when the game was over. Brian, do you expect to see any punishment coming Smart's way? In all seriousness, I do know that this is something you're pretty passionate about.
All right, first off, that was a foul on LeVert at the end of the game. And that was a costly foul because it ended up costing them the game. Secondly, yes, they should be fining him. The fine should already be out. And one of the things that has happened over the last couple of years is players are not getting fined in certain circumstances. Damian Lillard was wronged on a couple of calls. He went crazy on the court. They didn't fine him. Mark Cuban goes on a 9-tweet-long rant last week, and the NBA says, we'll have to wait until we investigate their claims on this game before we decide. This is not how you back up your officials. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, this has not been a banner year for officiating the NBA. It has not been good. Some of the younger officials that they brought in have not been as strong as they wanted to be. But the league is not backing up its officials on a regular basis. They are letting people get away with things. And this is what happens. There's an escalation. So now Marcus Smart feels like he can do this because he's not worried about any consequences. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you open it. I mean, at the end of last season, we had Sean Marks from the Brooklyn Nets barging into the locker room. Yeah. We had players, the officials' locker room. We had players throwing balls at officials. You have to defend and have your officials' backs. I don't think the league has done a very good job of it over the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to see escalations, and I expect this to be a difficult playoffs for officiating because it's not been a good year. And if you set the tone that you are not going to have your officials' backs, as I think the NBA has headed down that path this year, you're going to see more of this. And he was absolutely out of line. You do not handle it in that regard. There are other channels which you can handle it with, and that was absolutely unacceptable, and he should be dealt with accordingly.
Well, I said yesterday that I don't think that the notion of touching an official should be completely off limits at all time. But the reason I said that is because I believe that the purpose of getting close to an official is to have an audience. Marcus had an audience here and then proceeded to blow up, which was the strangest part about it. The escalation within the moment was, I think, where the decision making went wrong. You're sticking your fingers in people's faces. That gets to a point where I think it's hard to defend overall. See, there, the discussion is being had. Right. It seems to be that there is something going on from a communicative standpoint, and then it gets to that. And that's where, for me, you've got to make a decision as a league and say we can't have that, because if you're already speaking to somebody in a calm manner and things get to the point where you're then gesticulating wildly all over the place, I don't love the internal escalation, never mind how all the things that Brian mentioned have led up to this point. I
mean, look, it's hard. It's an emotional situation, so I think we always have to keep that in mind. But I do understand the escalation issue, and obviously officials have been troubled by all of this. I'm going to get back to the Celtics loss. Boston led by 17 entering the fourth quarter. They gave up 51 points to the Nets after that point, the most points allowed in the fourth by a Celtics team since 1972. Now, keep in mind, Jason Tatum was out. Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown both left with injuries. Here's Brad Stevens after the game.
Quite a few injuries there, but just a rundown for Gordon and Jaylen.
I have no idea who's going to Cleveland. I think most of the coaches are going, a couple players. I just want 8 guys, 9 guys, whoever's going to play hard, let's go. Like, that was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous, but also we only have 4 guys in a coffee mug making the trip to the next game. Are you concerned, Clinton, about the Celtics giving up 51 points in the fourth quarter? Or are you like, hey, they didn't have their guys. What are you going to do? It's
I'm more concerned after hearing Brad. I mean, it sounds like that is not a great situation. And look, there are things that led up to it. You mentioned who was out, but guys missing basketball games because they're sick after birthdays. Like, remember what you said 2 days ago? It's 6 weeks to go. It's crunch time. I wonder, when does crunch time actually apply for some of these teams in the Eastern Conference? And if this is not it, or if this is what we're seeing from the Celtics when that is actually coming down to it, that does concern me. It's not just what happened in this game because of the roster situation, but overall, when do you actually start deciding that guys have to play no matter what, and they got to figure it out?
I'm not going to freak out too much about this game. It was a bizarre one-off situation. And again, Marcus Smart they've got him triple teamed. Marcus doesn't foul LeVert on that play. They walk away and say, well, that wasn't the greatest fourth quarter. But I think what you have to do if you're Brad Stevens is you have to set the tone that we're not going to let focus to.
Questioning the injury report. Come on.
I'm not questioning anything.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.